Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're heading off in a new direction today. Preliminary to studying the life of David through the Psalms that he wrote, we're going to be in a few days looking at the Psalms that have historical notations attached to them, and going through the life of David with those Psalms. I thought before we do that, it would be important for us to talk about David's wives and just devote some time to those women. I think that David is the most accomplished human being that ever lived on earth, except for perhaps Jesus. Certainly the most accomplished warrior who ever lived, hand-to-hand combat, leading a guerrilla group, leading an army, planning campaigns. I mean, he was unparalleled in every one of those endeavors. He was a wonderful king. He was a man after God's own heart. He was, I believe, the greatest writer of literature in human history. I don't think anything anybody has written equals the Psalms of David. Just an amazing individual. He was also evidently a pretty good-looking guy. And a master musician, the sweet singer of Israel. So he is accomplished in so many ways and is the man after God's own heart. That's what Paul calls him in Acts chapter 13. Having said that, the Bible is clear as it records his history as a husband and father, that he's not an example in any way for men to follow as a husband and as a father. Many great men sacrificed their families in order to be great men. I don't know that David had to do this. I don't know that he intentionally did this, but I do know that his attitude towards women generally is in no way reflective of Jesus' attitude towards women generally, which we've talked about at length in the past. And so I want to take some time to talk about the 3 of his 8 wives that we know at all. And we do know these 3 wives in some detail. And those wives would be Michal, the wife of his youth. We'll talk about her tomorrow. And Abigail, the second woman that he married. And we'll talk about her day after for a couple of days. And then, of course, Bathsheba, who will be the mother of Solomon and the foremother of Jesus himself. And we'll spend a couple of days talking about that difficult and problematic relationship as we think about David. We're not going to be surmising anything that isn't already there in the Word. The Word is, as always, honest with us. David had 8 wives, just like Henry VIII. He did treat them slightly better in that he didn't have any of them executed and he didn't divorce any of them, although he caused one of them to be divorced, which we'll talk about tomorrow. And he received from every one of his 8 wives a son, which is something Henry VIII didn't receive from any of his wives, or at least not for long. Well, we have a listing of 6 of those wives in 2 Samuel chapter 3. This is a listing of the wives of David as he assumes the throne of the southern 2 tribes. I said he had a son by every one of his wives. He didn't. He didn't have any children by Michal. She's not in this list. And Bathsheba hasn't come along yet, so she's not in this list either. But this is the list from 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1, or verse 2. Sons were born to David at Hebron. The firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam the Jezreelitess. The second son was Eliab, whose mother was Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. The third son was Absalom, the daughter of Maacah, the daughter of Talmi, king of Geshur. The fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith. The fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital. The sixth, Ithream, by David's wife Eglah. These were born to David at Hebron. So in this short amount of time, well, it's not really a short amount of time, it's about 10 years, it seems, when he was ruling the 2 tribes at Hebron before the kingdom was united under David, he had 6 sons by 6 wives. while he was ruling as king there. Several of these sons are important, and we'll be mentioning them later on. Adonijah certainly is. Amnon certainly is. Absalom plays an enormous role in the history of his kingdom. But let's just notice that David has married women, some like Abigail because he had a connection with her and a respect for her. Some, like Bathsheba, because he felt lust for her and there were consequences to that lust. Some because it was advantageous to his career, as Maacah would have been, the daughter of a king. And of course, the wife of his youth, Michal, whom we will talk about tomorrow, is someone he was quite honored to marry. She loved him. The text is clear about that. And I believe he loved her too. Okay, we'll talk about her tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.